So I hope everyone's enjoying their PyCon so far. A little bit about me. I work in post-production for film, so making movies. I've been writing Python every day for my job for about 3 years now, but I come from a cognitive science background, so I took a few CS courses in university, but I didn't take a CS degree, and I was pretty rusty when I first started my job. And I find that getting good creeps up on you. Your first day on your job, you're not good. Your second, your third. But I look at myself now, and I'm writing full-stack plugins, and I wonder, like, how did I get from here to there? How did that happen? And how do I get to feel the feeling of accomplishment that I get when I look at the difference in the moment, rather than just knowing that I've changed? So I asked myself, am I good yet? The Python community is filled with people from many disciplines, and they learn Python for all kinds of different reasons. Not all of us took computer science in university. Not all of us learned to code when we were 8. Coming from diverse educational backgrounds, we also don't have the same milestones when it comes to how we learn to be badass at this. Add to that, Python is a tool used for many different applications. The data scientist, the web developer, the astronomer are not going to have the same content in what they write on the day-to-day, but they're all using Python. And of course, PyPI has close to 120,000 packages at this point. You are not familiar with all of them. Add all this leads to a very natural sense of insecurity, especially when you've taken one of those alternate paths into programming. And of course, all of this means you can find something you suck at if you're looking for it. The issue here is that many of us have this idea of being good as something intrinsic, a state that we hold and possess and that is relatively unchanging. Once you get good, you just have goodness and then you exude it onto the things that you do. So we have to ask, what is good? We make a category error here when it comes to ascertaining goodness. How do we possess goodness when in reality it's a state that we have to continually strive to get into? In the world of programming, you can never just be good and then stop. It seems much more sensible to weigh value in programming extrinsically. I did a good rather than I am good. We're going to take a little bit of a detour into psychology here, but it'll all come back around, I promise. The psychologist Carol Dweck talks about something called the growth mindset. She took a group of students and gave them a test of easy math problems. They all got 100% on it. And she then encouraged them in one of two different ways. Either, wow, you must be really smart, or wow, you must be really hardworking. The students then took another test and were asked if they wanted to have a harder or an easier test than the first one they took. The children who were encouraged based on intelligence, they were more likely to choose the easier problems. The effort-praised kids were far more likely to choose the harder problems. And then she brought it back around in a circle and then took a test of the equivalent hardness to the first one they took. The intelligence-praised kids had a 20% decline in performance. The effort-praised kids had a 30% increase in performance. This was after one instance of being reinforced in that way. So from this, and from many other studies that Dweck developed over the years, she developed the theory of mindsets. So the intelligence kids developed what she called a static mindset. They were ego-protective about their performance. They saw how other people saw them and gauged their valuation of themselves based on that. The performance kids encouraged a growth mindset. They oriented toward the experience itself of doing the problems. And growth mindset kids were also more likely to rate a higher enjoyment of the activities, and they were more likely to want to take problems home of their own accord at the end of the experiment. So how can we loop this back to programming? So in tech, we often encounter from non-tech people, from people not in our industries, you're so smart to even be able to do that. And then, of course, we go to our code reviews. And being kind isn't necessarily efficient in a code review. So I look at these two things and I go, how could we not have imposter syndrome? So that's all fine and good as an experiment, but how do we go about getting better at this for ourselves? Well, we could work on changing 3 things. We can change how we see ourselves, we can change what role our code plays and what enjoyment we get from that, and we can change how others see our code. And then, hopefully, we grow as programmers. So first, we change how we see ourselves. Hang out with smart people. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're doing something wrong. If you're seeking out social environments that don't challenge you intellectually, you're more likely leaning toward the static state protectiveness that we've been talking about. As much as possible, spend time with people who make you feel dumb in a good way. And on that note, embrace feeling dumb. programming is hard. Be wrong early, be wrong often, learn from mistakes, and then be less wrong less often. And orient toward learning. Don't be smart, perform smart, do smart. Look for opportunities to grow yourself rather than being ego-protective about your coding skills. So, how do we change how our code performs? We automate the little tasks, right? We all have those repetitive tasks that we do every day, and we know what they are, and we hate doing them every time we have to do them, and we know we could automate them, so just take the time to do it. So let's say we have to scan a directory on the regular. You've written a little function that gives you a list of uniquely titled files. And yes, my toy example for this is dog-based, because dogs are the new cats. I said it. So if you're good at automating the small things, you'll end up with a lot of extra time during your work. So this extra time you can use to give yourself your own mandate for how you're working. So you wrote a script that catches dogs in your file system. What about adding a GUI to it? What about deploying it to your team? If you haven't explored the PyKeep package for GUIs, I highly recommend it. It's clean, it's Pythonic, it has a built-in designer that helps you with formatting. And I didn't think I'd ever say this, but it makes me kind of excited for the future of programming Python UIs. So that's just a very, very simple bare-bones doghouse for our dog hatchery. And this, I won't expect you to read all of it, but it's just an idea of what it can look like in a small and simple way. There's our dog catcher function out there would be there, and it renders out to that. So it's small and simple, and that's with no customization, really. It also has a built-in file system watcher class, which I didn't have time to put up there. So for this example, you could leave it running, and it would update automatically for file system changes for your dogs. So now change how others see your code. Write documentation. Comment intelligently. Comment to designate what you were trying to do. Comment to designate if you used a particular method or algorithm, especially if you made a judgment call on that. You're going to do something wrong at some point. You'll have bugs. Commenting code can turn your reviewers' reactions from to So this part is all about keeping around those smart people we were talking about earlier. If your code isn't pleasant to read, you're not going to find yourself with very many eager or willing reviewers, because as unfortunate as it is, so test. You know you should. So 3 very simple things I'm going to especially call out, and of course, there's great documentation on all these things. They're great books on PyTest especially, but I'm going to call out Pythoscope in particular here because it's easy and it's a really great place to start. It takes a guess at what your unit tests should be, and it's like that simple to run. So really, if you don't know where to start with testing, if you know it's something you should do, but you just kind of don't get around to it, that's a great place to start. And of course, PEP8. I mean, sure, formatting isn't the sexiest part of coding, but when you look back at your clean, pretty code, it can make you feel polished in a way that other things, might not. And then also you don't get those annoying pull requests that are just PEP8 fixes. So for this, for a start on this, I love a package called Yet Another Python Formatter. So let's say you were possessed and you wrote a function like this. This is what Yet Another Python Formatter would spit out for you. So you see, it doesn't fix the camel case or anything like that, but it does fix spacing issues. So much of the practical advice in this talk you've probably heard before, but I want to stress not only what we should be doing, but why we should be doing it. To be a good programmer, you have to be prepared to be wrong a lot, to look dumb in situations, and to take ego hits when your code just won't run. And having this growth mindset is really key to that. So don't try to be a good programmer because you'll never get there, you'll never feel that. Just try to be a better programmer. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. The next talk's going to start soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.